The Sonicake Tone Group is a 10-band graphic EQ. It's an incredibly useful pedal, just EQ pedals in general. This one sits at just $55, and for the money, you're gonna get so much use out of it. When I was starting out, one of the first pedals I bought was a 6-band Joyo EQ for $30 I found on Amazon. It still works, it's in my basement, I use it every now and then. But for $50 you get a couple more bands, and I think this thing is really built well with a full metal enclosure. This video is a demo of the Tone Group as much as it is kind of an explanation of how frequencies work, how they pertain directly to the guitar, and also it's going to be a playing sample demo. I'm going to start out with kind of my stock sound. I'm using a Fano TC6, which is a relatively bright guitar, into a Mesa Boogie, slightly distorted, but kind of a flatter sound. And I'm going to be manipulating that sound in a number of different ways with this guitar pedal. And you can see how useful something like this is. First things first, if you want to skip around, I always have the timestamps in the description down below. You can find what you're looking for there. In this section of the video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how frequencies work, how they work with something as simple as a 10-band EQ here that we're using, and then also specifically how it relates to the guitar. So let's start out. Let's say hypothetically we play a note. We're going to use the open A string. I'm going to use the Fano next to me. It's a very bright guitar, so you're going to hear a lot of harmonics with this instrument when we get to the playing samples, and for that reason, it's a great guitar to demo this pedal with. So we play that low A string. That's happens to be the frequency of 110 hertz. What happens is you hear that note, but you hear all of the harmonics above it. So all of the multiples of 120 hertz. The first one, 220, happens to be an octave, an octave above that fundamental. Let's call that the first harmonic. Second harmonic you hear is a fifth above. That's going to be 330 hertz. That's an E. Then 440 hertz. That's notoriously an A as well. That's what we tune to, right? 550 is going to be a C sharp. So there's this entire hierarchy of harmonics that you hear when you play a fundamental note. Real quick, it's the fundamental, the octave above, a fifth, the octave again. We're 2 octaves above at this point. Then it's a major third. Then it's a fifth again. Then we have a minor seventh, and at this point it's a little bit flat. It's a little out of tune. We have the octave again, then the ninth, major third, a sharp 4, and it continues building. That's how that works. All right, so something you're going to notice here when we play the white noise test in just a second is how not just the fundamental frequency is affected, but how the frequencies, the multiples of that, are affected. So what I'm doing here is I've got some white noise pulled up, which is every frequency at equal volume. And we're going to feed this into the tone group. I've maxed out the master volume and cut everything else so that I'll be able to boost the specific frequency as much as possible. So in just a second, you're going to hear the white noise, which is every frequency at equal volume. We're feeding it through a reamp, like DI box, basically a reverse DI box, into the pedal, and I'm recording from the pedal into my interface. So this is the white noise, just all equal volume right now. Okay, I'm going to boost some of these frequencies. 32.25 is our first one, and this is super low. Might be tough to hear depending on what sort of speakers you're listening through. But we can see it on the graph readout. It's going to appear down here. You can see it's getting boosted. Next band is 62.5. And here's something I want you to check out. So we boost 62.25, right? You can see some stuff on either side of it is also being boosted. But we're also going to see the multiples like I was talking about, the harmonics. So roughly 120 and also roughly 180, kind of look in this range. Okay, 125. Now you're going to be able to probably hear it. 250. 500. 1K. 2K. 4K. 8K. And 16K. To kind of give you a brief rundown on, what frequencies might work for different uses on the guitar. Down here, this is just going to be pick noise, thump, weight. 125 and 250, I usually don't alter too much because that sits right in that kind of like low mid-range of the guitar, and it can make the instrument sound unbalanced. Boosting 500 is great to give it a little bit of weight, helps you cut through a mix. 1K and 2K, use that for clarity. If you really need to cut through better, 4K starts to get a little bit brittle. I don't tend to boost 4K. Sometimes on a Strat I'll cut 4K. And then getting up here into 8 and 16, coming through a guitar speaker, which is kind of narrow range, you're probably not going to hear too much down here. So if you want to make any changes with 8K or 16K, you're probably going to be boosting or cutting pretty dramatically. Before we get to the playing samples, I just want to thank Sonicake for making this video possible. They did set up a discount code, so if you're thinking about picking something like this up, head to their website, use my name at checkout, Alex Price, no spaces, and you'll get 5% off your order. You can also find this pedal directly on Amazon if you prefer to buy that way. Links are in the description to both. So this is just my stock sound straight out of the amp. It's basically what I use when I play out with this guy. In this first setting I'm going to use on the Sonicake, I'm boosting 501K just a little bit. 2K is boosted considerably, and there's like just a hair on 4K boosted as well. It's going to be a little bit louder, so maybe I'm going to take down the master volume to reach unity or something close. So here's a riff played without the tone group, and then one with this setting that I've pulled up. Not necessarily that one's better than the other, just different, right? It depends on the group you're playing with and the kind of sound you're going for, if some of these settings are going to be useful or not. So that's just kind of a generic like high mid boost to help you cut through a little bit. Let's say let's dial this up with a solo boost now. So I'm going to use the master volume, boost that a ton, and sometimes when I boost this amp, I feel like it gets too bass heavy. So I'm going to use the tone group to trim some of the low end just a little bit. How about for this next one, we're going to work in the opposite direction. So let's say the sound that you've been listening to is kind of the lead sound, right? That's like the highest gain sound you're going to need for this gig, whatever it is. And I'm going to use the tone group instead to cut back in volume a little bit. I'm going to boost the bass at 125 and 250 and then come back at 500. So it pulls back in the mix a little bit, also in volume, but kind of shapes the sound so it still sounds full. So here it is, without the pedal, and then I'll add the pedal in. This next one sounds a little kind of like towards a fuzz sound, so I'm adding in a ton of low end, even as far down as 62.5 hertz, and it's basically just affecting how the amp distorts, that's all. This one's a way to kind of clean up a real mid-heavy sound, which is usually what I go for with this amp. It's the smiley face EQ, scooping the mids as people call it. And there's a funny story about this amp. This is a Mesa Boogie Express 525. Used to have a graphic EQ built into it. It was like 6 or 7 bands or something. And I think they realized everyone just set it to the same smiley face EQ. So instead of the graphic EQ, they just switched to a contour knob. So that EQ is preset, and you would just blend it in as much as you want with this knob. So this is a way to kind of clean up your sound a little bit. Again, for like a rhythm part, maybe something delicate you're playing that needs a lot of note separation. And there's no volume increase on that one, really. This last setting kind of emulates what people refer to as a cocked wah sound. So if you're not aware, a cool thing to do with a wah pedal sometimes is turn it on and just find a nice spot to kind of notch it at. And you just leave it there, and it's a very focused sound. Pick a frequency and boost the heck out of it. That's what a wah pedal's doing, basically, but you're sweeping through it. With this pedal, I'm going to boost 500 hertz here. That's the frequency you're going to want to do it at. It doesn't really work with any of the others. And I added a little bit of weight on the bottom here to get more pick attack. So it reminds me of John Mayer's cover of Crossroads, which is a really cool sound. If you haven't left a comment yet, I'd love to hear from you. What did you think of the Tone Group? Is there a specific way that you like to use an EQ pedal that I didn't share in this video? Is there a specific playing sample that I recorded here that you thought really worked well? I'd love to know your thoughts. Thanks for checking out the video. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, all that stuff. And if you're thinking about buying it, like I said, there's a discount code you can enter through the link in the description. You'll get 5% off. So thanks for checking out the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.